You're listening to the best, the bravest. Interviews with the FDNY's elite. Always the growing pains of a new unit, and you kind of touched on it now. 84, 85, 86, you're trying to get off the ground and trying to make people understand it in the city, not just residents, but obviously the higher-ups in the fire department, those at City Hall as well. This is why we're here. This is why you need us. It's tough, but it's a beautiful thing when you look back in hindsight and you see, well, just that, the infancy stages and what you had to do and the fact that you were doing more with less. So when you look back on those first 2 years, what were the biggest challenges, but what were the biggest rewards?
Well, there were a lot of challenges internally within the house. We were put into a house with it was designed as a double house, but only had a single engine. So we were taking over a lot of their space. So we really had to work with them to get them to accept us and understand what we were trying to deal with. And we had to understand what they were now accepting, all of these 39 other people coming into the house and taking over most of their space. You had to work out the small issues in the firehouse, like commissary and cooking and cleaning issues with all of that. But we were also doing a lot of training, so we weren't always there. The engine was really great. They picked up a lot of slack for us. We were out all the time. In fact, one of the things we tried to do in the beginning was everybody was going to put $1 in a pool every time you worked. And the first crew that went to all 5 boroughs in one 24-hour shift would get the pool. Nobody ever won, but we were dealing a lot with new equipment. We, of course, had some basic equipment from the second piece that came to HazMat from Rescue 4. Rescue 4, of course, was doing the first HazMat response from about 80 to 84, 81 to 84, after the incident with the LPG tanker on the George Washington Bridge, which started the whole process up. But we needed a lot more equipment. So what we really did, and I'll give credit to Captain Gallagher, the first captain, and the 3 officers we had. We had Joe Jordan, whose son is a staff chief now. We had John Calderon, who retired out of the battalion, probably one of the longest serving battalion chiefs that I'm aware of in the job, and Joe Buell, both of them coming out of Rescue 4. But they took each of the members of the company and assigned us something. Phil McGardle was in charge of looking for schools to attend. Somebody was looking at level A ensembles. I was looking at level B ensembles. John Norman was there. He had a background in knowledge in plumbing, so he was looking at all of the equipment that we needed on the apparatus. We had Chris Waters there from Rescue 3, Noel. He was a chemistry teacher, and later on became the chair of the chemistry training program down at the National Fire Academy. He helped with a lot of the training and setup for us. And we had a tremendous amount of people in that first group. There were 60 volunteers to sign up to try to get into the company, and they picked 35. One of the guys, Billy Bolkerman, was a pesticide applicator out on the island. So we had a wide variety of talented people there. Vinnie Doherty had a degree in chemistry. Kevin Cully had a degree in chemistry. So we were able to portion out the workload to really try and get up to speed with some of the few other hazmat companies around the country. Jacksonville, Florida was one of the first ones, if not the first one. Houston was up there too. We had a lot of catching up to do, and the team pulled together quite well, but it was challenging. We also had issues at the top, getting the chiefs to understand this is not a fast process. And I still say it to this day. I don't know of any hazmat team that's ever saved somebody. Life safety is done by first 2 companies. We're going in to try and mitigate the material from affecting other people, to try and contain it, neutralize it, put it someplace else. And it's a slow process. And because there's no life safety usually involved except our own, it should be a slow process. taking the time to think about what the issues are, to sometimes taking samples and moving them around and testing them in the street before you can take an action. I can remember one of those we had in Brooklyn. A man had a contract company. He was a salvager that would purchase the contents of buildings that had where the business had gone out of business. And he had a new contract that he needed to have some empty drums to go and collect the stuff out of the new building. And he had a drum in the back of it was a 5-bay garage that he owned behind a row of homes in Brooklyn. And we accessed it through an 8-foot wide alley. He had a drum of bags of sodium chips, metallic sodium chips. And he took the bags out and was throwing them on the ground so he could use the drum. One of the bags broke open and ignited with the moisture on the ground, the dew. It's very reactive with water, moisture. And he tried putting it out with a garden hose. It got a little bigger, so he stopped putting water on it, started spitting back at him. It's like even probably more reactive than magnesium when we deal with magnesium fires on vehicles. And first 2 units came and they saw fire, so they took out a hand line and put water on it, and it got worse. And then they decided to smother it with some sand. So we got there and we took some samples, and Kevin Cully was one of the ones, chemistry degree, played with it in the street, and we determined it was metallic sodium. So we had to overpack it in a drum. The 2 of us went in and we put in some absorbent oil dry, then a bag, another layer of oil dry, a bag, another layer. We got to the last 2 bags and we ran out of oil dry. So we figured we would use the sand from the same pile that the first 2 units had used to smother the fire. Except now we were digging deeper into the pile of sand, and we've got some wet sand and put it on the second to last bag. Before we could lift up the last bag to put it in, the thing pretty much exploded out of the can. It reacted that violently with the wet sand. And we had a lot of learning lessons like that in the early days, a lot of challenges.